Hi, my name is Frank and welcome to my woodturning channel. This week we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to make a wig stand. Now the wig stands are something that my local woodturning club makes as part of a donated thing for cancer victims. And so for the ladies who lose their hair and get a wig, we make wig stands and donate them as a group. So the nice thing about that is we've got a bit of a partnership with a local wood turning store called Woodchuckers. They are located in Scarborough, Ontario, and what they do is provide kits for a variety of wood turning guilds. This is an example of one of their kits. So this would be the base of the wig stand. This part here would form the stem for the wig stand, and then this part here can be used for the top. Now the dimensions of a typical wig stand that is recommended that we turn for donation is shown here on this piece of paper. So the top is typically around 2 inches high, 5 inches in diameter. We don't want to make the top very heavy. The wig stand should be bottom heavy. So you can see that the top is relieved a little bit. And then of course we have the stem holding the top and the bottom together. And this can be of whatever design you choose. And then the base is typically around 6 inches wide by maybe 1.5 inches thick or so. Anyway, we want some weight and heft on the bottom so it won't be tippy. So that's about it. The only thing that's important is to make sure you have a good finish on the top so it doesn't scratch the wig. And you want to put a good finish on the entire piece so that it's, it can withstand a lot of holding and touching and moving around, that sort of thing. I'm going to start by doing the top and the bottom first. And to mount each of them, I'm just going to use a screw chuck. So here I'm drilling a 3/8 inch hole in each one of them. Now the hole is located at the same spot the mortise will be, so that's fine. The first thing I'm going to do is establish a large tenon on the top piece here, and that will allow me to turn it around and work on the bottom. If you don't have large jaws like I do, you could have just put a glue block on that top surface and then turn that around and use your chuck to grab the glue block. This piece is a lot thicker than I need it to be for the top of the wig stand, so I'm just going to turn the material down to that pencil line that I just drew. Now I'm just establishing the area that I'm going to scallop out from the bottom of the top portion, and that's to make that top portion light and not too heavy. So yeah, we don't want it to be top heavy. So here you can see I'm just scooping out that area as much as I can. I've done most of this with a 1/2-inch bowl gouge, but now I'm also going to use a small negative rake scraper just to take out any little lines and bumps and that sort of thing. And now here I'm drilling the hole for the mortise, and the wig stand handle will sit into this. Here I'm just doing a little bit of shaping before I turn the piece around. And now's the time to do all the sanding on the bottom because I can't really get to this area afterwards. I'm going to use the spigot jaws that will fit on the one-way Talon chuck, and that's just a perfect size. When squeezed down tight, it'll fit right into that 1-inch hole, and I can expand it and then hold the piece that way. And now using my 1/2-inch bowl gouge, I'm just going to turn this into a nice pleasing shape for this top portion. I just quickly go over the piece with the negative rake scraper to take out any little lines. And then next, I'm just going to get rid of this little nub on the top. Now the wood piece was thick enough so that there is a nub. If your wood is thinner, of course, then you probably wouldn't have used the tailstock and you would just have turned the piece and not left a mark on the top. It's really important to have this top surface nice and smooth, no cracks, and I'm going to sand it down to 320 or 400 to make it nice and smooth. Next, I'm going to work on the base, and I'll attach it with the screw chuck right into the hole that I had drilled, and then work on putting a mortise this time. I'm going to put a mortise on the bottom of this and use it in an expansion mode with my dovetail chuck. Now the wood's a lot thicker here, again, thicker than I need it to be, so I'm going to take a lot of this glued up maple on the bottom. I'm going to take that off and then form my mortise right into the cherry colored wood. I'm just going to use a small skew to form the dovetail in the mortise area. Here I'm just making sure it's undercut so it'll rest on the very outside surface. And now's the time to fully sand the bottom because I won't be able to get back to that surface again. So I'm just flattening off the top and getting it ready to turn a shape, something like the one here shown in the sketch. The depressed area is very handy where ladies can put their rings in there. So it's just a little storage area they can use. Now here I'm using the 1/2 inch bowl gouge again to scallop out the area. And I've noticed this is dull, quite dull. Surprisingly, I guess this oak has dulled it very quickly. So I'm going to grab a new tool, sharp edge, and continue on. Just like on the top, I'm going to use a negative rake scraper just to even out any little bumps and ridges. Just to add a little bit more interest, I'm going to put 3 grooves along here and use some wire to burn those lines in so they look a little nicer, they stand out nicer. Just like the top portion, I'm going to now drill a 1-inch hole in the bottom sections as well, just to take the handle part. So now I'm going to move on to the stem or the handle part of the wig stand. And this is spindle turning, so now I'm using a spindle roughing gouge. You definitely don't want to use a spindle roughing gouge when you're doing side grain, like on the top and bottom portions. But it's an excellent tool for this sort of application where it's pure spindle grain. And you can see as I get closer to my final surface, I really slow down my cut. Here I'm just laying out the 2 tenons on the ends of the piece, and those tenons will fit into the holes that I drilled into both the top piece and the bottom piece. I want a nice transition with the top and the bottom piece, so I'm going to take the diameter down just so that it'll be basically the same as those pieces. I'm going to mark the bottom and top pieces here so that I know which goes where, and then I'm going to dry fit and make sure that the mortises, that the tenon and mortise joint is just fits really nice. I don't want it to be too sloppy, and of course I don't want it to be super tight because the glue has to go in there as well. Here I'm just doing a rough layout of the high spots and low spots, and then taking my parting tool to go down to those depths. I can use the spindle roughing gouge again just to get the basic shape here. And I just keep working at it till I have a shape that's pleasing and roughly looks like the sketch, but it doesn't have to look like the sketch. You can do whatever shape you want here. Just like before, this is a final cut, so I'm really slowing my tool progression down and trying to do a really slow cut with a good finish on it. I'd like to add some decorative beads here, so I'm using the D-Way beading tool just mainly to establish the width of the beads. I'm not going to go in too far because this is really a scraper, so I'm going to finish off the beads with my spindle gouge, which gives me a much better surface on the bead surface. Since I have burned lines in the base, I'm also going to burn all the grooves in between the beads. So in between grits, I try to just quickly sand with the grain to get rid of some of the scratch lines before moving on to the next grit. The simplest way I've found to glue this all together is to just use my lathe as a gluing clamp. So I have the base in the chuck again, and I'm just going to put the parts together and use that one-way cup on my tailstock with something soft so it doesn't scratch the top, and this is the perfect clamping mechanism. Now I want to finish this with a nice hard surface, so I'm going to use wipe-on polyurethane, and I ended up doing 3 coats everywhere, but on the top I actually used 4 coats. So nice protective finish and a nice smooth finish. It's really important to have the top especially smooth because you don't want it to catch on the wigs. And that's it. Stay tuned for some images of the final piece.